Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you lying?
No.
No.
Get on that mic, right on it.
Barely.
Okay.
I got you, I'll bump it up. If need be.
Now. Good.
Yeah.
Better.
Better.
Better. Louder. Whoa. Whoa.
Nice.
Hey.
There's 2 Rogers in the room!
2, 3, 4. Anyone else in here a Raja? In disguise? So, has anyone else in here been living through this weird, pandemic thing?
No, we avoided it.
No? So, when the pandemic started, I was in college. I was in an advanced poetry class in college. And the pandemic started and we weren't going to class anymore, but we still had a poem due every week. And I didn't want to do that because I was stuck at home. Spring break started and literally I never went back to campus ever again. It sucked. I had to graduate from home. So I didn't feel like writing any poetry. So I kind of just started titling all of my poems crisis writing, almost as a protest against having to do this. So crisis writing number 1, number 2, number 3. And then I came to realize that there was more than one crisis at a time to worry about. But I want to start with some of my crisis writing poems. This first one is crisis writing number 18, also called Ode to the Broken Windows in My House. You persistent little fucks. You humbling reminder of our stumbling moments. The fly swatter swatted too hard. The arm crushing through you when someone's foot took a sleigh ride on a sock. The duct tape we never bought to coat how embarrassingly immodest you are. Why are there so many of you? Waiting to see how long it will take for someone to peck the little hazardous spikes of you from the tile floor is my favorite little experiment. You're everywhere. This is your home now. Reign over me, you bursted little aperture. You're like a portal to everything I've ever wanted, and yet I can't climb through you without stripping my skin, thin layer by thin layer, down to my blood. I want to pass through you so bad. Want to be you. Want to feel both sides of the world passing through the wounds in me. I want to be cracked open like you, want to be feared, want people to be afraid of walking through broken pieces of me, want the parts of myself I've shed to be strong enough to pierce the blood from anyone who dares to try to walk over me. I want your strength. I want to rule over someone the way that you do. This next poem, when George Floyd was murdered and the video was circulating everywhere, I had white friends that I hadn't talked to in years ask me if I was okay. And I was no, but what? Why are you asking me that? Is it just me? Just because I'm black, you just gonna ask me if I'm all right? So I got tired of responding to them, and I started responding with just a screenshot of this next poem. This is crisis writing number 8. The last time I was as scared as this, I was miles from home in a hotel in the South, and a headline told me a man had been lynched in a park a block away. And a white girl said to me, "This is kind of cool, you know? We're really living through history." When the pandemic started, I thought of her, because I think I know now what she was feeling. An awful thing was affecting her, but probably wouldn't kill her. I wish I could have felt it back then in that hotel. That feeling of knowing that I would get to live through history. Of being confident that the worst of things had passed, even if it was ignorant. I wish I could feel that now. Our hotel was on lockdown just like the country is now. Here I am again in disaster. Heart beating through history because I keep telling it to. Knowing I'll live through the virus. This time is different though. This is a hydra of a crisis. It seems with every mask scattered on I-90, 2 black bodies drop on camera. America has been growing ugly crisis head after ugly crisis head for as long as she's been. But we've had her in quarantine so long we almost forgot. Red blood, white skin, and blue uniform are her 3 favorite Creole trends. Americans are dying by virus by the thousands. Black Americans are dying by crushed windpipes, bullet holes, and by virus by the thousands even more. How many national pandemics can America fit in her pocket? How many can she swallow like candy? How many can she dismiss at a time? How many will make the news today? Next one's crisis writing number 27, also titled, I love black people. You know how people say they love candles, but they really mean they love how candles smell when they're burning? Find some sick, excited peace in watching the body of the candle droop down under the weight of itself? You love candles. When they burn, their scents are so strong, their light is so illuminating. Watching the flame flick over the wick is so exciting. There's nothing better than the way the flame beats at the candle, right? Leaves no choice but to soften, liquefy, bend over, surrender. You love candles. You could breathe in the smoke of their burning bodies all day. You love candles. I've seen you weeping over a candle burning out for the last time. A puddle, a burning nub of a wick. So sad to see a candle gone, but not sad enough to reach down and try to snuff out the flame because that flame was what made it so beautiful in the first place. You love candles, so you buy another, and you light another, and another, and you consume, and consume, and consume, and we burn, and we melt, and we burn, and we melt, and we burn, and we melt, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. Crisis writing number 24. Thank you. Crisis writing number 24. Patrick Warren is shot and killed outside his home on January 14th, 2021, after yet another wellness check gone wrong. Everything I've seen since I saw the video of his last moments alive has existed through a lens of his murder. In other words, I don't understand how things exist as if this had never happened, and I fail to understand it every time. I replay life in my head, disgusted at how it all fails to gel together. My dreams are clips of reality in montage. Get down, says the officer. Rise up, says Amanda Gorman 6 days later. Be the light, says Gorman. Lighten the skin, says America, since America has said much of anything at all. Children are the future, says the world. You're acting like a child, says yet another officer. I am a child, says 9-year-old girl, handcuffed and pepper sprayed. How could catastrophe possibly prevail over us, asked Gorman. By blunt force and power, says I, paying attention. Pay attention. I'm not here to give you hope. I'm telling you what the fuck you should be hopeful for. next poem is called A Note on Trigger Warnings at the Beginning of Poems. If you don't know this, a lot of times in poetry spaces, they'll have people give trigger warnings before their poems. They'll be like, trigger warning, this poem mentions suicide. Trigger warning, this poem mentions assault, right? But there's never trigger warnings for death, especially Black death. So this is a poem about that. If you can imagine, I'm gonna try to explain this to you. The first line is like across the top of the page, and then from there it's the same line, but words are taken out of it. If that makes sense. Everyone understand what I just said? So a note on trigger warnings at the beginning of poems. When was the last time you saw a trigger warning before a Black boy died in prose? When was the last time you saw a Black boy in prose? When was the last time you saw a trigger before a Black boy? When was the last time you saw a trigger warning for a Black boy? When was the last time you saw a warning for a Black boy? When was the last time you saw a Black boy? When was the last time a Black boy died? Was a trigger a Black boy? He was a boy. He was prose. He died. We saw a Black boy die. He was the last warning. When was the last time you saw a Black rose? When was the last war for a Black boy? This next poem is really interesting because it's like about social media, and I'm like not on there that often. I'm on like Facebook a lot, but like this poem is about Instagram. You guys know what those like boomerang things are? It's like boomerang, they're like my favorite thing on Instagram, right? They're a short video that plays and then plays backwards and then loops again. I love watching them swing back and forth, the little animated picture. It's so amusing for something so short. I mean, they're like a second long. You can blink and you miss it. They're as short as a finger snap, or a tongue click, or a heart pump, or the moment of hesitation that cop took before he shot a Tatiana Jefferson, or the sound of the gunshot. I'm surprised no one ever makes boomerangs out of the viral videos that become our murder. I mean, we're always watching them over and over and over again anyway. But say we had clipped a Tatiana's down to just that moment before she was shot. Let it loop so she was standing up again in the end, alive. It would still last longer than her story did on my Facebook timeline. But of course she got her moment of fame. They kept showing that video, said, look, it only took 0.6 seconds for this officer to shoot her down. Look, watch her fall. The video's too grainy to see her face, but clear enough to know that's her body you see collapsing. She's pixels now. Watch her turn to analog. Watch her become her death. It's so astonishing. Everyone always acts as if they've never seen this happen before. Like this wasn't more proof of history repeating itself again. You see, Black history is America's favorite boomerang. She loves watching it swing from now back to the 1800s and back again over and over and over and over with a snap of her fingers. It's like time travel. You could put a screenshot of a Tatiana's death in a display case next to lynch postcards and see how people swarm to stare at them both, and see how impossible it is to tell the difference. Are we not right back where we started? Ask the question, does anyone know is going to have to pry this microphone from my cold dead hand.
All right.
So, I don't even have that many more poems, y'all. But that last poem I did, that's the first poem I wrote where I started to notice that a lot of my poems are about these cycles, right? The cyclical nature of like our consumption of Black death. How it's always seeming to come back. Someone dies, there's this outrage. Someone dies, there's this outrage. Someone dies, there's this outrage. And I think it's really interesting because like history really does repeat itself. It's almost as certain as like the water cycle. You know what I mean? Like history repeats itself like water, and water repeats itself like history. See, we learn in school that water holds on to a distant past, that we may be drinking the same water from decades or even centuries ago. Meaning the water raining down on us today could be the same water that left so many people without a place to go after Katrina. Could be the same water in the rivers the Underground Railroad followed to freedom. The same water in the rivers the Negro speaks of. The same water we wash our curls in. The same water we wade in that God troubled. Could be the same water left rusted and indigestible in Flint's pipes. Could be the same water they found in a till in. The water in the hoses they sprayed us with could be the same water that caught us when we jumped ships and held us tight until nothing hurt anymore, and buried us where no one could find us again. This dirty water, this muddy water, bloody water, guilty water, filthy water. Water repeats itself like history. History repeats itself like water. We learn in school that history holds on to a distant past, that we're living the same history from decades or even centuries ago, meaning the history raining down on us today is the same history that left so many people without a place to go after Katrina. It's the same history in the rivers the Underground Railroad followed to freedom. The same history in the rivers the Negro speaks of. The same history we wash our curls in. The same history we wade in that God troubled. The same history left rusted and indigestible in Flint's pipes. The same history they found an till in. The history in the hoses they sprayed us with is the same history that caught us when we jumped ships and held us tight until nothing hurt anymore, and buried us where no one could find us again. This dirty history, this muddy history, this bloody history, guilty history, filthy history. History repeats itself like water. Water repeats itself like history. History in water, water in history. History is water. Water flows through history. Learning your history is just as important as drinking water. In school, so like any one of my history teachers would be like, "Oh, really? Just as important as drinking water." I think it's mostly because I have like a really short attention span. Like I can't like read for too long, and history is kind of like depending on you doing that. You know what I mean? Like this one time I was reading this book. It was called "The N-Word: Who Should Say It, Who Shouldn't, and Why." Right, and I was reading it, and I was trying to get the answers, like who should say it, who shouldn't, why, how come, right? And I found this quote by this former slave, right? And I was like, that's so interesting, because I've never heard of this man. So I put the book down, and I Googled the former fugitive slave, right? His name was Henry Watson, and I found his entire narrative, and I started reading it. And I didn't finish reading it because I found a quote that I liked. And I wrote the quote down. It was really interesting to me because like what he said was, and this is a quote, that there were men who do nothing else but hunt fugitive slaves with hounds that are so well trained that they do, as they advertise, take slaves without scarring them enough to injure their value. But like, Did you hear that last bit? Enough to injure their value. That part got to me. Because they must have had some damn good dog trainers for their time. They could train a dog not to rip off nimble cotton-picking fingers. And they could train a dog to know how much force is enough. And they could train a dog not to kill a man just because the future of a country is packed on his shoulders. It's funny. They could train a hound not to suck the value from a slave. Yet we can't stop a man in uniform from pressing his knee into throats, punching the beauty out of faces, firing bullets into craniums in front of small children, and destroying any speck of value that could be left in the bodies of the young, emancipated, citizenship-wielding, equal, and desegregated Black lives that matter just as much as the white or the blue. I guess we've stopped training our hounds. Or maybe we just need to retrain their snouts. They might be following the wrong scent. Don't know what they're looking for. Don't know they ain't still catching runaways. Don't know yet that we've discovered value outside of the nimble, cotton-picking fingers. I think we should retrain our hounds, but ain't it hard to teach an old dog new tricks? I mean, after all, the one that got Philando Castile was 29, and that's a hell of a lot in dog years. Okay, here's my last one, I promise. I'm gonna do one more. It's really short. It's really pretty. It's like my favorite. Like, I don't mean to like brag or anything, but this one's like really pretty. Like, it's really good. Like, this is crisis writing number 19. There have been a lot of different theories on how the world is going to end because of some man-made catastrophe, like nukes or climate change or coronavirus, but personally, I don't like the sound of those. I think they're all just a little too cliche. I think if I had to write the end of the world, I'd have a curious Black child running their thumb across the horizon until they found the edge of a smooth strip of tape. They'd start scraping at it with their nail until it peeled away. And there'd be nothing holding the sky to the earth anymore. And the world would just peel back like the top of a convertible. No flames, no sickness, nothing nefarious, just a collapse. Thank you.
Pleasure, Belle Freeman. Come on up here and do one last poem for us. But don't do it yet. I have to go to the bathroom, so kill some time for that. Kill some time. Talk. Tell them about yourself.
He said kill some time. That's so funny because I was planning on doing a really short poem. That is so crazy. So listen, I didn't know Terry very well. I would see him at like a poetry event now and then. He mainly at Doc Janning's Second Sunday Poets, which is First Wednesday Poets now, Doc? Is that? Is he over there?
Well, he's there. He's just occupied. Yeah.
Is it First Wednesday Poets now?
It's First Wednesday Poets at 7 o'clock at the library.
Yeah. Advertisement. But before it was Second Sunday Poets, and I think that's where I first remember seeing Terry, and he would go up and do these poems, and like, you know, I was always the youngest person there by a lot.
You're the youngest person up here by a lot.
And a lot of the people that would come to Second Sunday Poets, I mean, they were like really great poets, but they were like, oh, I'm just writing poetry for the very first time. I'm 85. And I like flowers. Right? And then Terry would go up and it would just like blow my mind, and he was always just like really talented. I'd be like, this dude is so fucking cool. You know? And I always just really like would want to like get to know him, and I ended up being his Facebook friend, and I'd always like stop and look at the things he posted because they were just so fucking cool and so thought-provoking. And when his wife took over his Facebook page and posted about him being sick, and I didn't know that, and I just couldn't picture that. In honor of him, I want to do a poem about how nothing lasts forever, because, you know, knowing Terry, it felt like he had like at least 100 more years in him, you know what I mean? So this is an alphabet poem. Everyone familiar with the alphabet? You know, it's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. So this is the alphabet as retold by someone who knows that nothing lasts forever. Another broken chain defines everything finite. Galaxies huddle in jars. Kisses last momentarily. Nothing's owed perpetuality. Quietly rusting stars, tranquilly undone. Violently wasting xenial years, zigzagging. I feel weird because it's like Ray told me to kill time, so I feel like I should like
Do it again.
My poem is like what, 26 words, right? 26 words. Yeah, no, I know. Just do something else. No, I was just gonna keep doing that one. I was just gonna do it some more time. No.
Well, you should have boomerang it.
So I can talk a little bit about myself. I'm a poet. I also teach poetry mainly to teens, so sometimes like younger kids. That's always fun. Right now I work at Lake Erie Inc. I was working at 12 Literary Arts. I'm the youngest ever member of South Euclid, the board of directors of South Euclid Community Development Corporation. I didn't know you were gonna start clapping for that. I also draw. I'm like, I don't know, like really good at it. I also draw. Trying to think. I also play the flute. I don't talk about that enough. Do y'all know that? Did anyone like who didn't know that? Who didn't know I played the flute? See, I don't talk about it enough. I'm currently 23 3/4. So my birthday is like around the corner. 23 3/4. And that's crazy because like I'm kind of like old. You know, like
I think these socks I have on are a little bit.
You might be the youngest person here.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Cause
She's got an old
My walking game.
it's wild to think about, you know, because I'm over 2 decades, and that's like a lot. Like, I have a problem with that. Like, I can't be 23 3/4 because I'm entirely too young. Like, I feel like there's a checklist of things you have to do before 23 3/4. And based off that list, I'm probably like 17, maybe 16, which is, that's probably why I have never, ever, not once in the history of everything ever, lost a game of never have I ever. Like, I always win easy. Like, a friend could say, never have I ever been drunk. And while most of the circle surrenders one of their fingers, overlapping it with other fingers laid down in defeat in rounds prior, I, with 10 fingers standing strong, laugh. 'Cause I'm gonna win, and I know it. And I'm a sore winner, so I look at the circle proud, and I say, never have I ever seen a pork chop. And the looks I get after that are usually just really sad, but that's okay, because I win. The only game I can win for having such a clean slate, which is perfect because I never, ever have to worry about dirtying it up as long as I have this game. It's better this way, see, because if anything should happen to me, there'll be nothing to slander my name with, nothing to dig out the dirt, no dirt to dig into in the first place. I stay in line, I keep my head down, I keep my mouth shut, because I know how far they'll go to stretch a story wide enough to cover their own ass, to repurpose slight character flaws for a guilt-free narrative. Should I be gunned down tomorrow, may the news headlines paint me beautiful, paint me truth, paint me in full color, not just in black, paint me human. May my shooter be villain in my narrative, not hero in their own. May the sound of their name be irrefutably disturbing. Should I be gunned down tomorrow, may you remember my words and know that I didn't deserve to die. Know that I lived each waking moment so deep in fear of bullets that I forgot how to sin. And as you hear my words in this moment, remind yourself that the price for one small mistake should never be death. Remind yourself that the price for not following orders should never, ever be death. Remind yourself that a child, yes, a child that makes one mistake does not deserve to be shot and shot and shot and shot and shot and shot. Know that his mother, like every mother, did not deserve to see her son's blood flee his lifeless corpse as he slowly decayed in the middle of the street. He, like you and I, was human and therefore made mistakes. He was 18, but I would trade him my chance to turn 23 3/4 if I could. Should I be gunned down tomorrow, know that I, like anyone else would be, was scared. When they dig up my mistakes that but I'm too afraid to admit I